had done a dastardly thing. Then to save my skin, I take back what I said.
Ida B. Wells. After both her parents died when she was 14 from yellow fever, she was determined to keep her and her 7 siblings together. So she worked as a school teacher while continuing her studies at Bay City University. After graduating, she secured a full-time teaching job in Memphis, Tennessee.
She sounds a lot like Aunt Idella, huh?
Yes, I guess she does when you think about it. Your Aunt Idella, like most women, had to be strong, especially if they wanted to keep the family together. Too many years of separation, lost legacy. You split the family, you lose your identity. To know who you are itself sometimes. Your Aunt Idella, like Ida B. Wells, understood that they were great women for any man or woman.
The South presented giving Afro-Americans their freedom, the ballot box, and the civil rights law. When I was 22 years old, I refused the conductor of a railroad's order to move to a segregated railroad car. So they physically picked me up, putting their hands on me, and moved me to the smoking car. After the humiliation, I exited the train at the next stop and walked to Memphis. I am a human being, and I refuse to be treated less than myself. I won the lawsuit against the Chesapeake and Ohio Railroad Company, stating that the company violated the separate but equal rights by forcing blacks to ride in a smoking car. Instead of equating me with the first-class seat I occupied and paid for. That verdict was overturned by the Tennessee Supreme Court, and I was forced to pay court fees. Treated so because of my race? No nation, savage or civilized, save only the United States of America has compressed its inability to protect its women, save by hanging, burning, or shooting alleged offenders. Somebody must show that the Afro-American race is more sinned against than sinning, and it seems to have fallen upon me to do so.
Something must be done. White prejudice denies blacks the opportunities that they need to develop their capacities. If we deny full expression to a race, restrict its education, stifle its intellectual and aesthetic impulses, we make it impossible fairly to gauge the ability of the race. Ever since I was a child growing up in Brooklyn, my parents, along with our dear friend and leader of our Unitarian Church, Reverend John White Chadwick, fought against the insanity of racism and what it stood for. Being born a few days before the death of Abraham Lincoln, I knew it was my calling to fight against a man's inability to live in a universal equipoise of his being. In searching for an efficacious way into making a dent into a machine that was so built for destruction, I heard the voice of one, Booker T. Washington.
I shall let no man belittle my soul by making me hate him. To those of my race who depend on bettering their condition in a foreign land, who underestimate the importance of preserving friendly relations with the southern white man who is their next door neighbor, I would say, cast down your book where you are. Cast it down, making friends in every manly way of the people of all races by whom you are surrounded.
I was introduced to the fierce passion of Miss Ida B. Wells. A woman who, despite having all odds against her, being black, being a woman, she refused to fight against the people's ambiguous right to life. She spoke vehemently on the lynchings of the South.
Our country's national crime is lynching. It is not the creature of an hour, the sudden outburst of uncontrolled fury, or the unspeakable brutality of an insane mob. No. It represents the cool, calculating deliberation among intelligent people who openly avow that there is an unwritten law opportunity to make defense and without right of appeal. The first statute of this unwritten law was written in the blood of thousands of brave men who thought that a government that was good enough to create a citizenship was strong enough to protect it. Under the reign of a national law that gave every citizen the right to vote, the newly made citizens chose to exercise their suffrage. But the reign of that national law was short-lived and illusionary. Hardly had the sentences dried up on the statute books before one southern state after another raised a cry against Negro domination and proclaimed that there was an unwritten law that justified any means to resist it.
To those of the white race who look to the income of those of foreign birth and strange tongue and habit for the prosperity of the South, were I permitted, I would repeat what I've said to my own race. Cast down your bucket where you are. Cast it down among the 8 millions of Negroes whose habits you know, whose fidelity and love you have tested in the days when that proved treacherous meant the ruin of your fireside. Cast it down among these who have, without labor wars, tilled your fields, cleared your forests, built your railroads and cities, brought forth treasures from the bowels of the earth, just to make possible this magnificent representation of the progress of the South.
The South. The South has demonstrated that neither character nor standing avails a Negro if he dares to protect himself. The South is brutalized to a degree not realized by its own inhabitants, and the very foundation of government, law, and order are imperiled. The Afro-American is not a bestial race. It is thus the backbone of the South.
If you can't, the reason's going to be hard to realize the dream. So I attended graduated from Hampton Agricultural Institute, presently known as Hampton University, after which I became one of the first assigned teachers to Alabama's Tuskegee Institute. Originally, it was an old one-room shack founded by Mr. Louis Adams, an ex-slave. Mr. Adams was approached by an Alabama senator seeking the black vote, looking for re-election. Mr. Adams' request in return was that a learning institution be established for the newly freed slaves so they can learn to read and write. 30 students in a one-room shack taught by me, Dr. Booker T. White. What I most needed is to get a foundation in education, industry, and property.
This is at a time when the slaves were newly freed and thriving to be proud. They want to hold their heads up high. They're searching for their identity and their place in society. The time of Reconstruction.
Isn't it hard, I wonder, to be of a despised race, as of a race that does despicable deeds?
Mary Ovington, you are one of few persons whom I call friend. Born into a family of abolitionists, you fought in the trenches with the darkest of us, dedicated your life to a belief in the cause as if you were clothed in the skin of our brothers. Your tenacity and belief are but a blessing to humanity.
I believe in what's right. I give what strength and ability that I have to the problem of securing the Negro Americans the rights and privileges into which every white American was born.
Thank you. Now is the accepted time, not some more convenient season. It is today that we may present our best work. It is today that we may fit ourselves for greater usefulness of tomorrow.
Is that W.E.B. Du Bois?
You heard of him?
Surprise, Tom. His name is William Edward Bernhard Du Bois. He's a Harvard graduate, emphasizing in Harvard. You see, I never really heard him talk, but like in his writings, he speaks eloquently. Both his parents was free, and his dad also lost him and his mom was too. She really couldn't work because she had a stroke.
My mother couldn't work after the stroke. And though family did support us, I had to work while in the process of getting through high school. And let me tell you, it wasn't easy, but she still desired for me to continue to strive for the better of my future, despite her illness. So I did, and I went on to Fisk University over in Tennessee, where I received my first degree. Then got a scholarship to Harvard University, where I received my bachelor's degree, cum laude. And then went on to University of Berlitz over in Europe to finish up my graduate's work. Not to mention, I traveled with some of the world's greatest social scientists. Anyway, after all this took place, I came on back home to Harvard University, where I was the first black man to receive a PhD. Dr. Du Bois. My mother's proud. My ancestors are proud.
Dignify and glorify common labor. It is at the bottom of life that we must begin, not at the top.
All men cannot go to college, but some men must. Every isolated group or nation must have its yeast, must have for the talented few centers of training where men are not so mystified and befuddled by the hard and necessary toil of earning a living, as to have no aims higher than their bellies, and no God greater than gold.
Success in life is founded upon attention to the small things, rather than to the large things, to the everyday things nearest to us, rather than to the things that are remote and uncommon.
The shadow of the mighty Negro has flicks through the tales of Ethiopia, Egypt, and Sphinx. The powers of the single blacks flash like falling stars, and sometimes dies before the world has widely gauged its brightness.
What's going on?
These two great men both share the ideology that blacks will be prosperous and economically independent now that they have their freedom. But they still differ in theories of how blacks are to achieve this, Dr. Washington believes.
The Negro has always been in positions of manual work, farming, building, cleaning, and sewing. Whites have always been comfortable with this, Why challenge the status quo? No race can prosper until it learns to do as much work and till in the field as in writing a poem. Let us not be so eager to drop what we know and look past the blessings of what we've already been given. Let's further educate ourselves as builders, agriculturalists, and seamsters, and still live in harmony with other races.
Let us stretch and grow. Not forgetting our gifts, but just being content with what was forced upon us. Let's create more opportunity and grow beyond what we know. Let's explore our black greatness and walk into who we are. Why not be a politician, doctor, or lawyer? Stimulate your mind, discover your passion, and be what you choose to be. Why not be worldly? Are we not of the world? We are free. Let's discover our voices and control our own destiny.
Dr. Should we teach race consciousness just as the socialist teaches class consciousness? And should we teach the black man to regard every white man as his enemy, except when he repudiates his race? Yes, sir. We must formulate a communion of like minds to a cause so important to the existence of a man. Ours, sir, is not just a black audience, but that we are humans on one planet. Yes, blacks are being persecuted and hung, but let us not forget our fellow man, the Indian, the Jew, and even the poor white, sir. We must not neglect our sole purpose. Yes, sir, we must come together. Yes, it is named the National Association for the Advancement for Colored People, but it must be lived, the National Advancement for Humanity. And again, my mentor, my hero, and my brother, we must never forget the intent that follows this man's purpose.
We
seventh son, born with a veil and gifted with second sight in this American world, which yields him no true self-consciousness, but only lets him see himself through the revelation of the other world. It is a peculiar sensation, this sense of always seeing oneself through the eyes of others, measuring one's soul by the tapes of a world that looks on in a muse of contempt and pity. One ever feels his two-ness, an American, a Negro, two warring souls, two thoughts, two unreconciled striving, two warring ideals, and one dark body whose dog strength alone is able to keep him from being torn asunder. The history of the American Negro is the history of the strife, his longing to attain self-conscious manhood, to merge his double self into a better and truer self. Leave every voice and sing till earth and heaven ring with the harmony of thee. Birds sing, they are rejoicing. Rise high as the leaves, rise, and let it resound loud as the rolling sea.
Right now. I mean, all this talking, this singing, this fighting. I mean, history, now I understand my parents a little more. I understand why they're always stressing me about going to school.
Talk to me, my sister.
I'm trying to.
Well, how do you feel?
I feel like I have to do something great or I'll let all those people down. Like my mom, my dad, God, Karina, and you, Fatima. You see, white and black people fall for so much. They fall for things that I take for granted, like going to school. I go to school and I complain about it. I ain't gonna lie. You see, there's just so much things that are going on right now, and I want to change my ways. And I guess I don't ever have anything to ever complain about, huh?
Good for you.
I like the way y'all talk to me.
What do you mean, hon?
You know, the way you guys put your thought into it, the words that you guys say. You talk to me like I'm proud.
My sister, you are a young lady growing up to a young woman. You are the reason we talk to you the way we do.
Remember when we told you it's time for you to learn about your history? You're an extension of all of what you experienced today, from John Punch to W.E.B.
And you want to know something else? We haven't even cracked the surface of numerous results for history.
The African kings and queens of Egypt, the father of medicine, and Hotep. The generals of the Roman Empire, the list goes on and on.
Also, you must remember you are so integrated now. In this journey, you've experienced even white back the cause of black equality. It is that unity that pushed forth today's opportunity.
What am I supposed to do with all this information?
You need to be true to thyself.
Be true to thyself?
Be true to thyself.
I really don't get it.
Be still, my sister, and listen from within. Your heart may be pressed for answers. Your soul felt strong about what you needed. The universe is providing. The process has started. That's why we came. Your purpose will reveal itself, but you can only see and feel if you're still. Trust, believe, and have faith. The process has started. Be prepared and open to receive it.
Be true to thyself. Trust, faith, believe. Thank you, my sisters.
You are so welcome, my sister.
Good night, Ashanti. Good night.
I love you.
I love you too.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I'd like to have the president of the NAACP, Bay City Branch, Mr. Herman Marshall, come up here and say a few words.
First, giving honor to God, who is the head of life. And I commend this director and the man who took time to teach our children. I commend these children for doing a wonderful job. It don't come easy. but they had to put a lot of time in what they did. And I'm grateful that they are a part of our branch. You know, we have to do something to keep our children from falling through the cracks. And this is a great start. And to get their mind on other things than the street. This is wonderful, very wonderful. I'm just so pleased to see all of these young people that's involved. And I'm grateful to have a small part in it as being the branch leader. We have come a long way, but we have a long way to go. And doing this, I'm almost sure it had something to do with our late president. She would have been well pleased with what has taken place here tonight. And I'm just so grateful to have known her. She was a great part in my life. And every time I think about her, I get teary-eyed because that's how much she meant to me. And I know that what these young people have done has made her well pleased. And what our director, he's great, and he's doing a wonderful job. And I'm just pleased to know him, because I met him when he was like down here. But he moved away and growed up and turned out to be a fine young man. And I'm pleased with knowing him. And I want to thank all of the people that came out to see this. You didn't have to take time out of your schedule to do so, but we are grateful that you took time to come to see what our young people are doing. They're not running the streets, they're not sticking up liquor store, but they're learning something. And I'm grateful. And I just want to thank all of the people that showed up for this play. And I especially want to thank our young people that took part, because they have did a great job, and our director has did a great job. Thank you.